What's up, Ego Hackers? Welcome to the CS Joseph podcast. Special thank you to the Acolyte members who basically chose to pay the $100 a month for all of our membership tiers, and with that, make these episodes possible. So as members, they get to ask one question of me per month, and I turn it into a video and a podcast episode for everybody to have the opportunity to learn along with them. So we are all gaining from that benefit simultaneously. So it's not just them, everyone gets the benefit. So welcome to the show. Today's question is, what can ENTPs do about insomnia, or how do they solve the insomnia problem? So insomnia in general is a big problem, but when it comes to introverted sensing inferior when compared to introverted sensing demon, because you can almost assume that introverted sensing demon is an insomniac. Like INJ types, you just literally can safely assume that they're all about, well, I don't want to go to bed right now, and it's because it's not what I want to do. And sometimes they're always trying to outwill their own body, but eventually their body gets in the way of their passion, of their heart, basically, and forces them to have to, sleep eventually. But over time, this actually lends to a lot of problems. In terms of their physiology, their genetic expression. Also, they end up becoming ill faster than everybody else, even to the point of having some of the rarest diseases or rarest conditions over everyone else. And this is something that INTJs and INFJs heavily struggle with. But that's not to say that, ENTPs or even ENFPs don't have similar struggles. Yes, while they have SI inferior, can have an opportunity at having a higher level of self-discipline, they can still almost be as self-neglectful as an INJ. And don't forget, INTJ happens to be the unconscious to the ENTP ego. So keep that in mind. They're similar enough that they end up having similar issues manifest in their health over time. And insomnia is definitely one of them. I personally struggle with insomnia many times, often throughout my life. One of the main reasons is that ENTPs are very much light sleepers, very light sleepers. And the worse the insomnia is, the lighter a sleeper they actually are. But like, for example, in the middle of the night, I'm almost always the first person that can hear something happening, or a baby crying, or because I'm just hypersensitive to potential danger, etc. Again, she's this ESTP sleep anywhere type of person, sleep under any circumstance type of person. And because of that, it's like, wow, that's a heavy sleeper. But ENTP, not so much. They're all light sleepers. And because they're all light sleepers, it can end up becoming a problem over time, a huge problem. So it's like, okay, well, how do we deal with that? Like, well, yeah, but why? Why is it happening? So, why? Well, I've noticed something, and, correlation is not causation, but what I have noticed is that ENTPs, or at least SI inferiors, are something what we call an adrenal type. It's like adrenal types, or their adrenal glands are extremely sensitive. So ENTPs are especially sensitive to fight or flight behaviors, as well as oftentimes being overly stressed, really sensitive to things like caffeine, etc. Like here, if you want to make your insomnia worse, just drink coffee, drink caffeine, eat chocolate. Any source of caffeine in your life basically is going to cause a lot of problems. And you can just basically assume you're going to create adrenal problems, and you can assume that you're going to be an insomniac that night. Especially the worse your insomnia gets over time. It could get a lot worse. And a lot of people are just completely unaware of this phenomenon. It's a huge problem. And oftentimes I have to take Dr. Berg's sleep aid just to be able to get through it sometimes. Don't do melatonin, though. Melatonin is like a really, really, really bad idea. But ultimately, the source of insomnia for like an ENTP really just comes down to a lack of self-discipline. And that's kind of weird if you think about it, because ENTPs, you can find them, sometimes they can be a little slothful because their superego temple is related to sloth, basically, when their ESFP superego ends up behaving slothful because that is the temple that is attached. The mind temple is definitely attached to that particular position of their superego. So based on that, ENTPs can get a little bit slothful. They can even get slothful when it comes to taking care of themselves, slothful with rest. And SI inferior being as sensitive as it is, especially from like an adrenal point of view, when your adrenals are just completely knocked out, your cortisol is super high, it can be a serious problem. So like honestly, go to like Dr. Eric Berg's YouTube channel and watch like his episodes on the different body types. There's adrenal types, pancreatic types, ovarian types, thyroid types, liver types. Find out which type you are. But my theory is that the majority, if not all, ENTPs out there are actually adrenal types. So you guys, when you easily take on stress, you end up having super high cortisol. It causes you to either produce a lot of body fat, or it eats up all of your muscle because it upregulates gluconeogenesis, and that's why you have the mega skinny ENTPs versus the mega fat ENTPs. It's usually one or the other. It's very hard to find an ENTP that actually looks mesomorphic. It's very, very rare. It's just, but SI inferior causes your adrenals to just get super, super sensitive. And remember, like, if caffeine is in your system, for example, it's in their system for like 18 hours. One drop of caffeine, it's in there for 18 hours. And guess what? Your adrenals are producing cortisol instead of producing other needed hormones. And that cortisol upregulates gluconeogenesis, which means your liver is turning your muscle into sugar, basically to deal with the stress. That's a huge problem. You don't want cortisol in your system at all. So what you have to do is that you have to train your introverted sensing inferior to have the self-discipline to force yourself to rest. And they're like, well, wait a minute. Why am I saying that? It's because, if you follow the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool approach to life, which is actually pretty typical for ENTPs to do, which is maximum effort. Because towards the beginning of their life, ENTPs typically are super lazy, very slothful, very depraved, don't actually really get very much done. Whereas later in their life, their work ethic is able to outproduce literally anyone and everyone. And based on that, it can be really stressful for them. Not only that, like, ENTPs have a hard time saying no. It's very easy to obligate ENTPs, so they actually absorb obligations all the time. Then they end up becoming insanely overwhelmed because of the high amount of obligations they actually take on. And then as a result of that, it upregulates their stress on their adrenals. Their adrenals start producing more cortisol. Gluconeogenesis becomes a problem. And then all of a sudden they become super mega skinny with absolutely no muscle, or they become mega fat, and then no one wants them. They're less desirable as a result, which then just increases the stress all the more from the ENTP's perspective, and they end up causing, or having additional problems as a result, right? You might want to stop that from happening. So, most in the beginning of their life though, an ENTP ends up spending a lot of time developing the habit of being able to obtain maximum effort and go all the way and have that really high performance work ethic. And then afterwards, they just end up stressing themselves out and burning out their adrenals. And then they have adrenal burnout or adrenal fatigue, which some people say that's not a thing. A lot of people do say it's a thing. Dr. Eric Berg definitely says it's a thing. Adrenal fatigue can end up becoming a problem. Adrenal fatigue is definitely the cause of the insomnia. But in order for an ENTP to get rid of the adrenal fatigue, they have to learn how to develop their FI trickster, to learn what obligations are actually priorities versus what obligations are not priorities. And then as a result of that, just let go of those priorities. And then from that point of view, from that perspective, well, guess what's going to happen? The ENTP at that point is all of a sudden having to use their introverted sensing self-discipline to say no or to force themselves to rest. I'm forcing myself to rest right now. I kind of broke my foot again because, that's what I like doing, breaking my foot. At least I passed my Krav Maga test this time, which was fantastic. But, got some tendon-related injuries on it, and it's a problem. And also some bone-related injuries as well. But I gotta wear this stupid boot all the time, and that's a huge problem for me, having to wear this stupid boot everywhere I go. And it's inhibiting my ability to, train and do what I actually want to do. But the thing is that I kind of have to. I'm kind of like on ice for a while. Well, guess what? I upregulate my productivity in other areas, like, for example, producing content for you folks. But, at the end of the day, you have to understand that rest is far more important. The thing is that you being an ENTP, with being afraid of being weak, oftentimes you end up feeling weak because you are resting too much, or you feel like you may be resting too much. And then you just want to go hit the nose to the grindstone and go maximum effort mode again, but that's not exactly healthy. So you have to really seek balance as a result. This is why I highly recommend you guys read The Warrior Within by John Little, which talks a lot about Bruce Lee's personal philosophy. Bruce Lee is an ENTP, and as a result, I think you would learn from him some techniques that you could utilize to have the self-discipline to actually rest. By having that self-discipline, you'll be able to prevent the insomnia as a result. And then from that insomnia, you'll actually be able to engage in better health. Sometimes you just have to force yourself to rest, even though you spent your whole life learning how to force yourself how to have a work ethic. It's just the next leg in the journey, folks, because again, you will burn out, and then everything in your life will just fall apart. SE Demon will burn everything down because you're uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, nobody is comfortable. And trust me, it's really hard to sleep with an ENTP who has insomnia. It's a huge issue. Well, that insomnia can go away as long as they have the self-discipline to force themselves to rest and to force themselves to take care of themselves properly. To recognize that there is a time and place to do maximum effort, but that is not every single day. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the Discord.